In early December, Bandai Namco invited me to a preview session to check out Tekken 8, including a significant portion of the game's story campaign and many of its offline offerings, such as the Arcade Quest game mode. Here's what I thought of the game after 3.5 hours. There are some things that I wasn't quite sold on, but there's a lot more to be excited about. So let's dive in. Tekken 8 has some new offerings like the Arcade Quest, as well as a new Ghost system that's meant to mimic your playstyle and help you get better as a fighter through training and tips while keeping learning easier and more engaging. The idea though is straightforward. Fighting games have a stigma that they're very hard. They're too complex, and you need to sink in hours of time to invest in learning before you can properly enjoy the game. The Ghost system is meant to solve this problem by providing you an environment that mirrors how you play, by fighting an AI Ghost character that learns in real time and begins to mimic your style. Fighting the Ghost and training it over time leads to better results as the AI has more information to work with. The more you play, the more you have opportunities that will allow you to learn from your own mistakes by seeing them played back to you. Maybe you missed an easy block here, or you failed to capitalize on an opening, or maybe you just fudged your juggle combo. All of these tips, from basic to advanced, offer every player, regardless of skill, the option of learning by just fighting, instead of training against a static opponent. Even more impressive is you can download Ghost profiles of actual pro Tekken players, creating a live scenario for you to supposedly train against some of the best in the game, which is a very cool idea. The Ghost system was interesting to me at first, but my initial experience with it was less than impressive. However, we were limited on time. I didn't get to really sink in time with it to see how well it could adapt and learn to my moves, so I do believe the team when they say that it does get better the more you play. After all, it is hard to judge a feature like that in the first hour or so. Now, although I didn't get to really challenge the capabilities of the Ghost in the training mode, I did however go through the Arcade Quest, which has you customize your own avatar and travel through several arcades where you take part in kind of this meta world of gamers all wanting to challenge each other in Tekken at these retro arcade cabinets. It's cute and a fun little change that reminds me of Street Fighter 6's Battle Hub, except more in line with older style avatars instead of your own fighter. I can see Arcade Quest being a fun adventure for those who grew up in the arcades, and there's a fun amount of life imitating art in here with a wide variety of personalities interacting with your character, from the friendly to the aloof and intimidating. The story in Arcade Quest seemed fine for what it was, but it's not something that particularly appeals to me. After all, I just wanted to get into a fight. Once I started climbing up the usual ranks and started dispatching enemies dozens of ranks above me with ease, the old itch from Tekken's earlier treasure battle mode was finally getting scratched. When it comes to the core gameplay, every fighting franchise has its own style and novelty. Usually some will give each button a strength level, light, medium, and heavy, which you can then combine with various punches or kicks depending on the game. Tekken has always fascinated me because its core fighting involves tying each arm and each leg to a specific button, and each attack to a certain height. It's not light, medium, and heavy attacks, but low, middle, and high. And it's not just a punch and a kick, but a left punch, left kick, and a right kick. Add on some of Tekken's iconic battle mechanics by using moves that can launch your enemy, throw them, juggle them in the air, or even extend your chain of attacks, and all of this and more can lead to a huge number of potential combos. Throw in the rich variety of roster characters and some of their various stances, and the combo list grows even longer. For example, my personal favorite, Hwoarang, has a left and a right stance, a left and a right flamingo stance where he balances on one leg, and hilariously a disrespect stance where he turns his back to his enemy. The same buttons that you press for one stance will perform entirely different moves in another stance, which leads to a tremendous amount of combos and situational attacks to remember at a moment's notice. This is obviously easier said than done, and in my experience, it is for this reason that Tekken is particularly challenging for newcomers, especially when you consider that part of Tekken's DNA is to relentlessly juggle your opponent the moment they make a mistake, which for newbies can happen quite often. It is not fun to just see your character bounce around the arena, unable to gather their footing, and watch your health bar dramatically decrease before you can get a proper shot in. Tekken 8 balances the core fighting in a way that, in my experience, seems to directly address this. For starters, there is a simplified set of controls called Special Style, which is perfect if you want to get someone who has never played to hop in and hit the ground running. I can't say much else about it in practice because, quite frankly, I didn't use them. But if you're new to the series, you can use this method, which changes the way Tekken plays in line with something akin to Street Fighter 6's modern control, a beginner-friendly control scheme that attempts to bridge the gap between veterans and newbies. The goal is to remove the usual barrier of entry to executing stronger and more difficult moves, and Tekken's take on it works like so. The game will assign each main button a different purpose. Using PlayStation controls, your X button is for a power crush move, your triangle is a launching attack, which if you just mash repeatedly, it'll set up a bunch of juggle combos, and your circle button will handle all low attacks. Then we've got the Rage and Heat system. The Rage system is not new, it's something all Tekken players have known for years now, and it is mostly unchanged. Rage arts have been simplified across all characters, so it requires the same button input, which is a minor but welcome change. The Rage drive seems to have been absorbed in this new Heat system, which is the most radical and novel mechanic introduced in the game thus far. Heat, unlike Rage, is not contingent upon where your health bar is. They can use Heat pretty much whenever, at least at first. When you use Heat, you got about 10 seconds where your character is glowing white and can get aggressive fast. You can activate Heat by itself and fight as normal, and the heat gauge can be replenished as long as you keep up the relentless attacks. There's an extra flourish with Heat, especially if you use a mechanic called Heat Engager, and certain powerful moves once landed will cause your fighter to actually make a mad dash immediately to your opponent while they are staggered, and it'll activate Heat. The cherry on top is whenever your timer is close to running out, you can throw down a Heat Smash, which basically takes the place of Tekken 7's Rage drives. All in all, the core fighting feels like it always has, and that's a good thing. Now, one of the flashier parts of the game that caught my attention was just how brand spanking new everything looked. From some of the gameplay online, it might not seem that different from Tekken 7 at first glance, but trust me, on further inspection, there's a lot of visual improvements. Character models have more detail, the lighting on arenas look awesome, and overall, the visual upgrades are significant. However, the real power of Unreal 5 and the current generation of consoles will shine the most during the campaign cutscenes. The moment I realized this occurred when I saw a flashback to Tekken 6's cutscene during the main story campaign, and the difference between the two was astounding, to say the least. Now, the cutscenes are cool, but I know you're wondering about the graphics during the gameplay matches, and rest assured, the gameplay benefited from the leap to Unreal Engine 5 as well on both a visual and technical level. Frame rates were smooth with my time on the PS5, and the action looked crisp, the Rage arts being a major improvement in their coolness factor. Seeing electricity spark from Jin's hands or splashes of color pop out with every powerful punch from Steve isn't anything new to the franchise, and to some of you, it could be distracting. For me though, that all adds to the fun action, and Tekken 8's rendering of it all is the franchise's best yet. Now, if you're familiar with the Tekken world, then you know just how campy and goofy the Mishima storyline has been. With a constant back and forth between Heihachi and Kazuya chucking each other off a mountain, and a Devil Gene making its way through the Mishima and Kazuma bloodlines, the running joke, at least for me anyway, is how there's this evolving timeline of bad guy after bad thing, constantly threatening the world and all existence. And there is always, without fail, a King of Iron Fist tournament. It is so absurd, it's fantastic. Without getting too into the weeds on the story to avoid spoilers, we're still going through familiar territory once again here. You're playing as Jin, and our guy's going through the ringer a bit, trying to combat his Devil Gene, but becoming weaker as a result. A lot of it is a direct sequel to the events of games past, with themes of family, lineage, legacy, and the desire to change one's own destiny, except in Tekken 8, the story is told in a far more coherent and engaging way. Tekken 7 in particular suffered from its storytelling mostly through static images and voiceovers, and Tekken 8 rectifies this by creating a full campaign that, particularly for newcomers, can be worth the price of admission alone. To put it plainly, Tekken 8's campaign brings to mind the way stories are told in games, like Mortal Kombat and Injustice, and this is a welcome change. As for all the new faces and some old ones that'll pop up in the campaign, I'll leave that for you guys to experience once the game finally comes out. Tekken 8 releases on January 26, 2024, and my thoughts on the game are honestly positive. It's worth mentioning though that I am pretty easy to please when it comes to Tekken. I almost always played exclusively offline with friends, or I just farm the treasure battle and stock up as many silly customizable outfits as I possibly can. But things like the rest of the full story campaign, online connectivity, and other more nitty-gritty aspects of the game are still yet to be seen. But if you're like me and you enjoy a good beatdown with your favorite characters on the couch, man, I tell ya, there is a lot to look forward to.